Amazing, another AI speech that I'm sure no one's heard. So, as I was getting ready for this little talk, I thought about a lot of the things I've heard in AI and really want to focus in on, how is AI manifesting itself today in healthcare? What's stopping me from getting paid? And how can I squeeze every little bit of juice out of that rock that we all struggle with so much? First thing is, I think we should start by renaming and kind of classifying what we think of as AI. So when I say AI, everyone's first thing is artificial intelligence, right? So what is artificial intelligence? I'm sure if I asked every single person here, you'd have a different definition. So I pulled one from McKinsey. I wanted to get it really good. So it says, AI is a machine's ability to perform the cognitive functions we associate with human minds, such as perceiving, reasoning, learning, interacting with an environment, problem solving, and even exercising creativity. That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff to impute into the revenue cycle. And it's a heck of a big leap from that first macro I wrote in Excel back in 1997. So maybe we try to put too much on ourselves when we think about AI and putting it into an entire process. So instead, I suppose we try to think about it as augmented intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. I'm sure we can all think of a colleague that has this horror story of a big firm coming in and saying, hey, we're going to automate your entire revenue cycle and all of your clinical trials, everything's going to be done automatically. And it goes up in smoke, and it's a lot of time, and it's a lot of effort. It doesn't really go anywhere. So it's a little more realistic today if we try to think about how we can just start to help our staff members perform a little better, organize data in a way that's a little more consumable. So a few places we see healthcare in healthcare today with AI. Obviously, they can help predict patient outcomes. We see a lot of AI in even interpreting and analyzing medical images. But really, where it really hits the road is in revenue cycle for us here today. And where does it get stuck? Did we register the patients correctly? Did we get them offed correctly? Did we get the billing in on time, or is there something else we got to do for it? All that's a little easier said than done, and I know that that's kind of simplified down to the point of a salesman can understand it. But when you think of the thousands of variations and microprocesses that happen inside a revenue cycle, it becomes clear on how important a machine learning process is in all of this. And machine learning in healthcare, the best way to think about it I can explain is looking at vast amounts of data that one person would never be able to look at and starting to assign outcomes. So what are the different value prompts? What are the different values and events that come into a claim that determine an outcome? What are the variations that really matter or force a fork in the road of if the claim's going to be denied, paid with one shot, paid with 10 shots, followed up on 20 times, or none? And what process can you manipulate inside of that to change the outcome? Some of the major challenges that we have in our systems right now start with the EMR. And so that's really where everyone starts, is that EMR, but it's just the one system. Everyone's got 200 systems bolted onto it. So you got a RIS, a scheduling system, you got a prior auth system, a claim scrubber, a clearinghouse, you got ERAs coming in and out, and all these different bolt-ons. So it's really hard to create a longitudinal record of all the way across a patient's life cycle to see what's really stopping it from getting paid and what's making it take longer than normal. To make matters worse, even when you have all of these, it's hard to look at everything at one time. It's easy. We all have our preconceived biases of what stops rev cycle from happening on time. We go to DNFB, we go to claims, but those things are really good, but we got to be a little more micro on top of it. And then you get into the payer rules. Payer rules change every single day. I've been coming to these events, MGMA, Becker's, ANI, for longer than I want to think about. And every year I hear there's going to be 20% more denials in patient access. There's going to be 40% more encoding. That's every single year we hear that. So being able to play the same game over and over and over again isn't really a good strategy for figuring out what really are the drivers inside of rev cycle, especially when we talk about AI. And even just yesterday, I was talking to a payer, and we're talking about how they're delaying their claims 90 days just right off the bat for no other reason, just to hold cash. And that happens every single month. They change that exact idea. Some of the common scenarios we see with our billing systems is, the billing system starts out with a really good kind of balance and an ATB and a population of accounts to follow up on. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't give us a good way to do it. So it allows us to sometimes sort it, big to small, old to new, sometimes even stupider stuff like alpha or geography. Inevitably, someone ends up pulling it out of the EMR and they put it into a spreadsheet. So we see this all the time in big BPOs and big body shops where that's all they do for workflow is they put it out, and then you get all the 100 different pivot tables. Inevitably, that leads to black holes. Things where accounts just fall through the cracks, never get followed up on, or they get followed up in the wrong order or the wrong time. This, of course, leads to poor resource allocation. So we don't think about how we're putting all the same people in, and we're looking at high value task versus low value task, and we're all lumping them in together. So if we have one account that's going to be followed up on 30 times and 30 accounts are going to be followed up one time, which ones should we work first? Kind of the ones that we can do once and get a whole bunch of cash rather than spend a whole bunch of time on that one that's just going to keep chugging and chugging and chugging. And obviously you want to work the high dollar, but it's more a point of in what order. When we look at the 5 steps, including in an AI, a machine learning kind of strategy for claim follow-up, the first thing you want to do is analyze what your strategy is going to be and figure out what are the actual things that are stopping and starting these claims from going forward. And the great thing about machine learning is it can find things that are not even intuitive to me or you. I've been doing this a long time, and I've got my preconceived notions, but machine learning is great at pointing out stuff that we never even thought about before. And there's hundreds of them where we may have an idea of what's stopping the claim, but it's hard to have that time to go and actually do it. So the next one is prediction. So a lot of times, by and large, we see systems ranking claims by their gross charge amount. Obviously, that's going to vary wildly on what you're going to get from cash. Some of the more advanced systems have a contract management system of some kind where they can get down to a net charge. But even that is not really good enough. There are other items that come into play here when it comes down to prediction of cash. So some of the other things that we've realized that really take a big chunk out of this are, what are the reimbursements going to be if it's got a denial? What if it's got 2 denials? What if it's got a mid-payer switch on it? What are the payer trends towards the end of the month or after a bank day? There's all sorts of things that come into play here that really kind of change the game on when we follow up on accounts and how we do it and who does it. Prioritization, though, is where the rubber really meets the road here. If you have enough AR staff that you can work every single account every single day, then you don't need to worry about this part, and call me when you want to hire for management. But the rest of us have to pick and choose on what accounts we follow up every day. I've not been in a system yet that follows up on the entire inventory every single day. So it's really important that we take the best people hitting the right accounts that you're going to get for the maximized cash on every single time. And that last little part there is really important, especially on the people. We've got to do a better job inputting our people into this machine learning and figuring out who's really good at what. So we have teams, and I know you're all thinking, oh, we do that already. We have teams that are good at Medicare. We have teams that are good at Blue Cross, teams that are good at this. Yeah, but you have some people that are really good at online and following up on portals. And you got some people that are really good on a phone with a baseball bat trying to get a payer to do something. And those people are wasted on other tasks. So on the accounts that you know are going to require that person to sit on the phone for 20 minutes, you want to funnel those to certain people and funnel the ones that are just statusing and let's get the check number and let's move on. And let's start to put that into our learning as well to decide who's going to work it and when. Finally, it's important to realize this job is never done. So while if I do a prioritization algorithm today with my machine learning stuff and it spits out an order of things I should work, that's going to be a different order if I run it tomorrow or at the end of the month. So things happen all the time, and it's important to let our preconceived biases go on what's really happening. Did I skip one? It keeps moving for me. Okay. So this is a little peek into the way we think about our machine learning. So I'm not going to read all these one. You probably can't even read it. But there's a lot of different dimensions up here on what affects an account. There's 40 or 50 of them up there. The other ones are really about what the people do, like we just talked about. What are the different people aspects of it? And then what are they doing specifically inside of the accounts? So the EMR is very good at, here, this account's been worked, but it's really bad at telling you exactly what just happened. So some of them do a pretty good job on statusing to say, you did it, you worked this claim updated, it's going to pay on this day. But most of the really good information, it lives in the notes. So one important aspect of this is to do a little bit of more work on the actual claim statusing part. What I mean by that is when your people are working a claim, don't just say, I've worked this claim. It's important to go a couple levels down so you can plug this into your machine learning and not have to just live in the notes section. Let's see. For prioritization, we first factor in the previous conversation we just had, and then we start to apply the actual work that's available. So, and this can change on a day-to-day basis. So whereas if I have a staff of 200 people, and I've got 7 people absent this day or this day, and I've got the Blue Cross people are absent, having that being able to move around is a big deal. And it's important to think about the qualities of each of these reps as they go forward to maximize cash. When we allocate this workflow, this actually produces some orders that we weren't really ready for. So there's, like we talked about a second ago, when we first ran this, there were 5 claims that were worth $10,000 or so, but there were 70 or so on the list of follow-up because it had a denial on it and it probably wasn't going to get done. But all the ones before it were lower claims, but they added up to more dollars. So those kind of things are going to happen, and it's important just to roll with those and try things out that are a little different. The other thing that comes into play here is time. So where a claim might be 500th on the list and way down, it may jump to number 2 on the list on a certain day because it's coming into a timely filing limit, or the claim statusing engine found something else that it might jump up on. So one of the mistakes we see a lot is when people have this one algorithm, they run it once a month and here's what we're going to run, or they run it once a week. But these things change on a day-to-day and sometimes hour-by-hour progression on to see what's updated. So, in summary here, what I want to think about when you think as you leave here, don't just think about AI or automation as a way to automate a whole process. Instead, you want to think about automation as a way to organize your work to maximize your staff's time. And this goes to adoption as well. So if you've tried to put in bots, if you've tried to put in any kind of automation or RPA in your staff, a lot of people reject it and say this doesn't work. It's not tied directly to our data sets. It's not going to flow correctly with our normal work models. So they try not to make it work. And we see this all the time. So it's important to start slow and give them the tools to help them work faster and better with an attended bot rather than an unattended bot. Second, avoid trying to automate follow-up and getting rid of people in big chunks without knowing exactly what's happening. So this goes to automating a process that was bad at the beginning. So after we've done all this work to figure out the exact things to do and the exact things that are affecting these accounts, a mistake we see a lot of people make with automation and AI is they'll go ahead and they'll RPA a terrible process. They'll go ahead and pave over a bunch of dead bodies just to get a good road there, but it's going to be a terrible road and it's going to lead to more bad things anyway. Finally, the best news of all. So, we've talked a lot about data and, big data lakes of claim statusing. The good news is that as a provider, you own this data. You have all the tools at your fingertips. You are the Jed Clampett of data mining. You just have to know where to look for it. You have to know how to drill for it, and you have to have the right tools for extraction. So with those things, that's the best news for providers, where they think that there's no way I can tackle this. It's just about having the right providers and the right partners to go after these things. So I ran through that extremely fast. The normal speech for this lasts 58 minutes, but I boiled it down so quickly. So I left myself a little time for any questions. So anyone have a question? Not even Laura? Well, good. Well, thank you guys for coming. I've enjoyed speaking to you guys. Please feel free, if you have a question later, if you want to come up and talk to me, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, enjoy the conference.